Welcome to Apex Philosophy, the perfect place to find motivation. Be sure to subscribe and listen every day so you can become your best self. Please like and share the video to help inspire others. Stoic Lessons from Marcus Aurelius. The life of Marcus. Marcus was a Roman emperor that reigned with grace. He was a famous Stoic, but let's look at how he came into power. Marcus Aurelius was 17 years old when his uncle, Antoninus Pius, became the emperor of Rome. His uncle adopted him as his successor, where Marcus learned about running the government and practicing public office. When Marcus peacefully assumed power after the death of his uncle, he ushered the Roman Empire into the Golden Age. Marcus Aurelius is considered the last of the 5 good emperors, and after 38 years of his reign, his death paved the way for the quick descent of the country. During his younger years, he learned about Stoicism. He was hard-working and highly intellectual. He needed to put all his energy into something more than his advanced classes in Greek and Latin recitation. And that's when Epictetus, a former religious slave, introduced him to Stoic philosophy. From then on, this would become the primary philosophy of the soon-to-be emperor. What is Stoicism? Before we proceed to the Stoic lessons from this great emperor, let's first find out what Stoicism is. For those that are unfamiliar with the term, Stoicism is a school of philosophy that originated from the ancient Greek and Roman philosophers. Its primary purpose is to maximise our positive emotions while reducing negative ones. This way, we can become virtuous and unperturbed individuals. Wealth and success. The only wealth which will keep you forever is the wealth you have given away. Do you believe this? Marcus Aurelius certainly did. Most of his famous quotes are based on aspects of life that can be related to virtues. Indeed, he was one virtuous emperor. He even believes that poverty is the mother of crime. No one should be poor or stay poor. He adds, "A man's worth is no greater than his ambitions." We cannot go through life walking around like a zombie on autopilot. Life is meant to be lived, and frankly, it's quite hard to live in poverty. Have you ever heard your parents telling you that you can't buy something because you don't have enough money? When they do this, they engrave into our heads that money is something scarce and that expenses should be limited. However, as Marcus said, we need to be ambitious. We must understand our limits, but also push through them. Just because a thing seems difficult for you, do not think it is impossible for anyone to accomplish. The same goes for whatever aspirations you have in life. If you want to be rich, you can be. If you want to graduate from college, you'll be walking up that stage in no time. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. If you can think about it and believe in it, then you can achieve it. You must always confine yourself to the present. Do not live in the past, for it has already gone. Do not worry about the future, because it is imaginary. Your present is the only thing that is real. Lastly, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. So be whoever you want to be now, and over time the world will reward you. It all starts with your mentality. Thoughts on relationships. How about relationships? How can we be successful in managing the quality of relationships between our friends, family, and lovers? The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly, and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. Marcus Aurelius warns us about the power of our thoughts. You see, things go south when our thoughts are left unchecked. For example, if your friend ignores your messages, one of two thoughts may arise. One, they are ignoring you intentionally, or two, they are too busy right now. The first type of thought is often a reflection of our insecurities. In a new age of instant gratification, we often feel bad when we don't receive something immediately. We grow impatient, and this leads to negative thoughts. But let's say that you thought about the latter. Do you notice how it settles on neutral ground? It can go positively or negatively. You might think that your friend is just busy living, but you might also think that they are too busy for you. And now, the neutral thought becomes insecurity. Marcus Aurelius says, "I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinions of himself than on the opinions of others." We often think that others see us in a bad light, that they judge us for all that we do. But we are advised by this great emperor to look into the truth of the matter. Your friend is probably in class, trying to concentrate on the lesson. They might be doing something else. That is their priority at the moment. They became your friend for a reason. You know them on a different level. You know their likes and dislikes. You know their strengths and flaws. And yet, you still choose to be their friend. Natural ability without education has more often raised a man to glory and virtue than education without natural ability. In other words, you need to use your common sense to face almost every given situation. Do not succumb to your negative feelings. And if you wish to seek more comfort, here's another quote. "We ought to do good to others as simply as a horse runs, or a bee makes honey, or as a vine bears grapes season after season without thinking of the grapes it has borne." Do good to your friend by trusting in the strength of your friendship. If you get lost, come back to this goodness of thought. The same goes for your family and spouse or lover. There are so few people that we could truly trust in this world. Let us not make our own relationships complicated by diving into sadness and staying there. As such, Marcus advises, do every act of your life as if it were your last. Revenge and troubles. But of course, relationships are not without their own troubles. We can't deny the fact that we get hurt. This hurt can often turn into anger, or even become a vengeful spirit that sends us down the wrong path. How much more grievous are the consequences of anger than the causes of it? We might end up regretting our own actions after everything is said and done. Sometimes we are too blind to how our anger is affecting us. We lose sight of what is important. But we must also recognise the power of anger. For anger cannot be dishonest. This means that there is always a reason behind it. For example, you are angry at your parents and you can't point out why. You just don't like being with them. You don't like talking to them. And when things finally boil up and burst, you realise that it all stemmed from the fact that when you were a kid, they abandoned you. Or at least you felt abandoned. Again, anger can show us the way to honesty, but only if we let it. Sometimes we ignore it and then succumb to it. Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul. Take some time to do some shadow work. Shadow work is looking inward and addressing the hard issues that you've been ignoring or pushing down. Face all your past traumas and deal with them. Sometimes it's not only one trauma that causes our whole life to be miserable. Sometimes it's a series of disappointments. An example could be a sudden breakup. After all you did for them, they still betrayed you. After all you have given them, they still left. This situation doesn't just apply to spouses and divorce or lovers and breakups. Instead, it can even apply to friends and family. But, as Marcus says, the best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. In order to be better, we must not follow the same steps that we took before, and we must not tolerate when people treat us poorly. Sometimes we must cut people off from our lives, and that's just part of growing up. Life is neither good nor evil, but only a place for good and evil. And loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. Nature and future. Everything that happens as it should, and if you observe carefully, you will find this to be so. Marcus Aurelius tells us that we should never be afraid if we are being led down a path, even if that path is hard or uncertain. Nothing happens to any man that is not formed by nature to bear. You may find comfort in believing this concept. You see, not everything in life is easy, but it also isn't impossible. Rest easy that the Lord doesn't give you trials that you cannot overcome. Never let the future disturb you. You will meet it, if you have to, with the same weapons of reason which today arm you against the present. To understand the past, Marcus Aurelius tells us to look over it. Analyse what's happened and what you can do to improve. Know your mistakes and learn from them. And if you can observe it to a greater scope, everything rises and it also falls. He also tells us to despise not death, but welcome it, for nature wills it like all else. And although this can be taken in a literal sense, we can view it metaphorically. The death of your old self is the beginning of your new one. You are not the child you once were. You are not even the person that you were yesterday. Death, like birth, is a secret of nature. It happens, and it needs to happen. Each thing is of like form, from everlasting, and comes round again in its cycle. So let it happen, for the act of dying is one of the acts of life. After all, it is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live. So when you wake up every morning, think of the wonderful future that awaits you. You are living life. Each day provides its own gifts. The universe will lead you into something greater, so trust in it. The universe is transformation. Life is opinion. You can be led into something better but not appreciate it. Similarly, how can you see the wonders of the universe if you do not change your thoughts? You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realise this and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius tells us that although the universe creates the change, it is our thoughts that form our feelings about that change. We cannot change if we are stuck in the mistakes of the past. We cannot change if we are too worried about the future and forgetting to live in the present. If it was your last day on Earth, what would you do? Would you still worry about the things that haven't happened yet? Would you still hold on to the grudge you've had against your ex-lover? Will you still not pursue the girl of your dreams? In our everyday life, we fail to realise that it could be our last. And that is why Marcus tells us to execute every act of thy life as though it were thy last. Time is a sort of river of passing events, and strong is its current, No sooner is a thing brought to sight than it is swept by and another takes its place. And this too will be swept away. Time is precious, so don't waste it. Accept the things to which fate binds you, and love the people with whom fate brings you together, but do so with all your heart. Remember, change cannot happen if you are anchoring yourself to the past. You need to be open and committed to this positive path forward. 4. He who lives in harmony with himself lives in harmony with the universe. Thank you for listening. Comment below. Are you anchored into something in the past? What do you need to let die to make room for growth? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.